All right. We're doing a new kind of live. I thought about starting to do some lives different than the one I usually do. We do some lives about going to a course to free code camp, but I thought it would be nice to start doing some lives where we're solving coding challenges live to basically flex our JavaScript muscles a little bit and maybe learn a little bit along the way. And the websites I'm gonna use for hello there. The website I'm gonna use are going to be Edabit, Leetcode, and Codewars, and we're just gonna do some challenges in this one. Probably we're gonna start with some easy ones, and we're gonna go to some easy ones to some of the next lives, and then later on we're probably gonna start with some harder ones, but anyway, some of these easy ones are not as easy as they lead you to believe. So I thought I'll start with one or two or maybe three challenges from Edabit. We have one here called Bitwise Operations. And they say a decimal number can be represented as a sequence of bits to illustrate. So basically they say that the decimal number can be represented as a binary number in base 2. And here they say from bitwise representations of number we can calculate the bitwise AND, bitwise OR, and bitwise XOR using the example above. And they show what would be the result in binary for this. Now they don't give much explanation, but basically if you look at bitwise AND, since this is since 6 in binary is this and 23 is this, they show that bitwise AND is basically this number, but they don't explain what are the rules. But basically what are the rules is you look at the two numbers at the same positions, and if at least one of them is 1, then the number becomes 1. uh, uh, Otherwise it becomes 0. Actually both of them for bitwise, and both of them has to be have to be 1 for the resulting number to be 1. So if you look here, 0 and 1 becomes 0, 1 and 1 becomes 1, 1 and 1 becomes 1, 1 and 0 becomes 0, and so on. So both of them have to be 1 for the resulting number in the position to be 1. Now for bitwise OR, at least one of them has to be 1 for the result, for the final number to be 1. And for bitwise XOR, the resulting number will be 1 only if the two numbers at the same positions are different. So if they're 1 and 1, you will get 0. If you have 0 and 0, you will get 0. But if you got 0 and 1 or 1 and 0, you will get 1. So they say write three functions to calculate the bitwise AND, bitwise OR, and bitwise XOR of two numbers. So basically they give you the numbers in base 10, and they want you to calculate the bitwise AND, OR, and XOR. So you're gonna need to transform them to binary first. You calculate the bitwise AND, OR, and XOR, and then you have to transfer it back to decimal number. And I'm just checking if anybody said anything so I don't let people hanging. Alright, and here they also say JavaScript has a useful function toString2 where you can see the binary representation of a decimal number. So let's go to the code here, and I'll copy these functions in Visual Studio Code as I can write easier there. So the first thing that you'd want to do for both of the numbers that are passed, you'd want to transform them to a binary number, and which is going to be a string. So basically you're going to use toString2 to transform them in base binary. Like for example, I'll give an example before putting this here. If you have a number like const number equals 8, and then you say console log number to string in base 2. It's basically gonna make this number a string but in base 2, so it's gonna convert it. So if I do this, you get 1000. But what we want to do is we want to add some leading zeros to this number because it can be different. So we want to add some leading zeros to basically, in case one number is bigger than the other, we want to be able to have a number um, to um, to compare with. Because, like, for example, if I have if I compare 8 and I get this, and then I compare something like this, right, as you can see, that one will have more numbers, and if you don't have any numbers here to compare, you won't be able to compare it, right? But I guess we don't really need to add them unless yeah, I would say maybe add leading leading zeros. I don't know how many we should add. uh, can we do it another way? Well, I mean, we could say first, um, okay, so what we can do is we can say something like this. We can say const max equals uh, actually, let's do this. Let's say let binary 1 equals to n1 to string and base 2, right? And then we say let binary 2 equal and 2 to string 2, right? So now we have them in binary, but we want to add some zeros to the ones that is not the longest. So what we want to say is we want to say binary 1, and I know there's a function in JavaScript, I don't remember uh, which, I think it's path start, that you can basically make a number as long as you want by padding it, or a string, right? So let's see, is it path start? Yeah, path start, and with another string multiple times, see that target length, and then the path string, right? So basically we can say binary 1 equal binary 1 path start, and here we want to give first the desired length that is gonna be, and the desired length would be basically the max length of any of these strings. So we're gonna say mat max, and we get the length of those two string, binary 1 length and binary 2 length, right? And then we want to pad it with 0, right? I think even if we put 0 like this is gonna work. and we want to do the same for binary 2. There's probably like, I'm probably overcomplicating this a bit. There must be an easier solution. Maybe I'm just trying to solve problems that are not really there, but I'll just do it like this for the start, and then we'll see if there is a better solution. But I mean, sometimes you don't have to do the shorter solution. Anyway, so now we have padded them, and then what we want to say is we want to create a new string, const uh, result equals, and we start with an empty string, and we don't want it to be a const, we want it to be a let. And then what we want to say is for let I equals. And if you're watching this and you have any questions about what I'm doing here that you don't understand, please put them in the chat and I'll try to answer them at the end. So for let I equals 0, I less than, and you can choose any of these, n1 length or n2 length, because at this point they are the same. And actually you don't want to start from 0 and end up here. You want to start from this length, and you want to do it actually you want to start from this length minus 1, because you're starting from the last. And then here I less than equal to 0, so because you want to start from the last index of the string to the end, right? So here you put 0, and then you have I minus minus, right? And now what you want to say is if number of n n1 of I, and then you want to say and number, here you actually have to close this because you're making this a number, and number of n2 of I. So you're starting from the end and you're comparing them. And when you're comparing with and in JavaScript, if you have 1 and 0, it will give you 0, because actually it will give you it will kind of give you yeah, it will give you 0, because it gives you the last one. If the first one is true, it gives you the last one, and if the first one is false, it just doesn't go any further, right? So it always returns 0. So if none of them are 1, then this will return 0. So if you say if number of this and this, then you want to say result equals 1 plus result. Otherwise you want to have result equals 0 plus result. And you can make this shorter by saying, instead of saying if this, you can say result equals, and you're saying 1 plus result, and you're not saying result plus 1, because this is a string, and because you're starting from the end, you also want to go these numbers to go to the end, right? So here what we're going to say if this is true, then we want 1, otherwise we want 0. So basically here we're making 1 or 0 depending if this is true, and then we want to say plus result, and then we can delete this. right? So basically result gets at the beginning of result we're adding 1 if this is true and 0 if it's not, right? And now we at the end we have the result in binary and we want to return it in decimal. So what we want to say is return parse int. We're transforming it in a number now, and we're going to say first we're going to say the number which we're transforming, and then we're going to tell parse int the base in which the number is, and at the moment it's in base 2 because we want to transform it from base 2 to decimal, right? And the thing is we're going to oh, before I go any further, because this is a bit long, we can make it a bit shorter. Instead of saying number, if you have a string, you can make it a number by adding a plus in front of it. It may make it, but probably we're gonna leave it like this because um, if we so basically what I was gonna say, if you have a string that's a number and you want to transform it into a number, you can just say something like this. You can put plus in front of it and that's gonna transform it into a number, but we're gonna leave it like this because this is more readable. And here's the thing, because all of these things we're going to need them in all of these functions. We don't want to repeat them in all of the functions, so I'm going to make a function that does this for us, and we can reuse it in all the functions, right? So what we're going to say is we're going to say um, function return binary padded numbers of n1 and n2, and we're going to do this, right? And then we're going to return something like this. We're going to return an object n1, but let's name it something else, number 1, which is binary 1, and number 2, which is going to have the value of binary 2, right? And now in all of these functions we can say, we can basically say const, and we're going to deconstruct those values from the result of this function, because this function returns an object with the properties number 1 and number 2, which is the numbers we need, right? So we're just going to deconstruct them, number 1 and number 2 equals, and we're going to call the function return binary pad the numbers, right, with the numbers that we get in this function, right? So that we can get the values, the binary values that are already padded, right? And then we want to use here number of well, here we need number 1, right? And here again we need, instead of n1, we need number 1 of I and number 2 of I, right? And here we can copy the exact same thing for OR, right? But here, instead of saying AND, we're going to say OR, because it's OR. And the exact thing for this, except we're going to say if number, actually we're going to say if number of I is different, because it has to be different of number 2 of I, then we get 1, otherwise 0, right? And that's it. This should work. Let's copy all this. Hi, so hi, welcome to the live. I'm going to respond that question in a second. All right, so let's just try this first. Check. Ooh, instead got none. Okay, why is it none? Part in the result two. Okay, so let's try and see where our problem might be. Number 1 length, number 2 length. Plus result. Okay, so result might become not a number here at some point, but why? Okay, so let's try it here and let's see what's going on. Let's put some console log here. Let's say console log, and we're gonna say bitwise end of 10 and 20, and let's put console log here. Is this becoming not a number? Okay, why is it becoming not a number? Number of number 1 of I. Are we going number minus 1? A less than equal to 0. What's going on here? Is it I less than 0? No, what's going on? Number 1 length. Are we not padding them properly? Let's console log number 1 here. Let's see exactly where the mistake is. Let's see if we get number 1 and number 2 correct here. Okay, so the numbers are correct. Wait, what's going on here? Why am I getting the exact same numbers twice? It should be different. One is 10 and one is 20. Oh, here we have a mistake. Here should be binary 2. Okay. Okay, so now we have them different, but we're still getting not a number. So where does the mistake happen? I less than equal to 0. Number 1 length minus 1. Oh, right. So the mistake is here because here it should be higher than or equal to 0, because we're basically going down, we're not going up, right? So that was a stupid mistake. So now we get the proper thing. Let's copy all this. We took a long time to solve what should be an easy. Don't tell me there's another error. Okay, there's an error somewhere. There's still an error somewhere. Failed 15 instead got not a number. Expected 11 instead got not a number. But it doesn't tell me what it's. Okay, so there might be another mistake somewhere, so we're gonna take even longer. Okay. Oh, that's because this all of this have to be changed, not just one. Okay. Oh, that took a long time. All right, so going back to the question that was asked, what is minus one? So, I don't know if you're still there, but here basically when we're saying for let I equals number one, length minus one, is because that's how you access the last index of an array, because an array starts from 0, right? So if we have const numbers equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the indexes of these elements are starting from 0. So you have the index here, you have 0. So basically if you console log, if you console log numbers of 0, so the number at position 0, you get the first element, right? So you start from 0, then index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. And as you can see, the length of this array is 5. So basically always the index of the last element is gonna be the array's length, so numbers length minus 1. So if you get numbers length, which is a length of 5, and then you extract 1, you get 4. So that's the index of this. As you can see, if I put numbers of 4, you get the last element, right? So here, before, what we were doing when we were saying for let I equal, and we were saying, for example, numbers length minus 1, and then going to I higher than or equal to 0, I minus minus. And if we say console log numbers of I, we're basically traversing this element from the last element, because we're saying I is starting at the last index, numbers length minus 1, and it's gonna basically subtract 1, I minus minus, until it is higher than or equal to 0, and then once it's equal, it's going to stop, right? So basically here what's gonna happen, we're gonna go through all these indexes starting from the end to index 0, and we're gonna console log the elements at those positions, right? Let me clear this so you can see. You can see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And why we did it like that, because what we wanted to do is we wanted to basically check the elements from the end to the beginning. Obviously, now that I think about it, because we have actually padded the numbers, we could have just went from the start. We could have just said go from 0 to numbers like -1. Somehow in my logic I had to start from the end, but because they were padded, so they were the same length, we could have started from the beginning to the end. And on to your questions, how toString method works. I don't know exactly all the like under the hood things, but basically if you have a number like 1 2 3 4, and then you say console log, well, let's say const number equals 1 2 3 4, and then you say console log number to string. It's going to transform it into a string, right? But you can also pass it a base, right? So if you pass the base 2, it's going to make it in base 2, right? As you can see. And maybe you want it in base 16, right? And then as you can see, it makes it in base 16, which is 42, right? So that's about it. All right, let's go do another one. Why is this stuck? Anyway, let's just open another one. Looking at these challenges put into the easy ones, but I wouldn't say that's something easy for someone that would be newer to JavaScript. Even I stumbled on a few things. But alright, so here they say add up the numbers from a single number. So here they say create a function that takes a number as an argument. Add up all the numbers from 1 to the number you pass to the function. For example, if the input is 4, then your function should return 10, because 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10, right? And they say expect any positive number between 1 and 1000. Alright, so go into the code, we can copy this, and the problem is, given a number, we want to add up all the numbers from 1 to that number and return the result, right? So we can say const, well, we can say let, because we're going to change this, let sum equals, and we're going to start with 0, and we're going to say, well, we can start with 1 actually, and we're going to say while num is higher than 1, because we already added the 1 to the sum, we're not gonna add it again. So we're going to say while num is higher than 1, then we want to say sum equals sum plus, and we're going to say num plus plus. And this is a tricky thing to basically, well, not num plus plus, num minus minus, right? So this is basically a tricky way of saying while num is higher than 1, we want to add to the sum, we want to add the number, and once this is added, then we're going to basically decrease it, right? So this is kind of a clever way to saying sum equals to sum plus num, and then num minus minus. Instead of doing that, you just say sum equals to sum plus num minus minus, and this is basically going to add it to the sum and then decrease it. And we can make this shorter by saying sum plus equals num minus minus, right? So let's copy this and let's check. Oh, what's going on? And oh, so the problem here is that we didn't return at the end of the function. You always have to return the result if you want to return something. So we're just going to return the sum, right? All right, let's submit this. Okay, let's do one more from here. Mastic houses. This is probably going to be a weird one. All right, let's see what's going on here. This challenge will help you interpret mathematical relationship both algebraically and geometrically. Create a function that takes a number step as an argument and returns the number of matchstick in that step. See step 1, 2, 3 in the image above. So when so basically you have houses like this which are kind of stuck together, right? So you basically step 0 returns 0 matchstick, so we're just going to return 0 if, and then from 1 you have houses, but as you can see houses share share a wall, right? So for this house, for example, if you consider these two houses, actually basically for each house that you add is going to be the same as the house above. So for the first one it's going to be basically 6 matches, and for each additional one is going to be 5, right? Because each additional one is not gonna use the is not gonna need one of the walls, right? That's what it seems to me. So basically, as you can see, if you have here 6 and then you have 3 more houses, is basically 3 or 5, 21, right? Because 3 or 5 is 15, 15 plus 6, 21. The input step will always be a non-negative integer. Think of the input step as the total number of houses that have been connected together. Alright, so what we want to say is we're gonna copy this and we are going to say they were saying if it's 0 return a 0, right? Okay, so if step, which means if step is 0, because basically here we're saying if we negate this and it becomes true t, which means this should be 0, then we want to return 0, right? So if we're not returning 0 here, what we want to return is basically 5 houses, 5 matchsticks for each step. So step or 5 plus 1, because one of them has an additional one, which is the first house. So we're going to say return um, return step multiplied by 5 plus 1. And to make this a bit shorter, we can take this from here and say step. So if the step is not 0, we're returning this, otherwise we're returning 0. All right, so that's it. Let's put in the code. And that's it. All right, we did some Edabit. Let's do some Codewars one, maybe one or two, and we're gonna start with some 8 ones, which are the easiest one. Now the thing is, I don't really like these challenges that are like stories, but we're gonna try them. All right, so let's see what they say here. Let me move this here. They have an image here. Oh, what? Come on, I don't have time to read this. I'm gonna do something else. I want a shorter explanation or shorter text for the problem. Uh, okay, what is this? This series of katas will introduce you to basics of doing geometry with computers. Point objects have x and y attributes, x and y in C. Write a function calculating distance between point A and point B. Tests round answers to decimal places. This is not much of an explanation. I don't really understand what they want us to do. Train. T. Well, this is not much of an explanation, so I don't really understand what they want us to do. Right, but let's give it a go. So you have a point A and point B. So let's go into because I haven't done this kind of geometry in a while, but let's go into a paint program. Paint online. All right. So we have the x-axis and the y-axis, right? And this is 0.0 for both of them, right? This is 0.0. And let's say you have a point, like you have, for example, this is 10 here. So you get a number 10 for x, and then a number maybe 10 for y, right? To calculate the distance between this, you need this. So basically you have a rectangle, so basically you have to find the diagonal. Do I remember how were you calculating the diagonal of I don't so much since I've been in school, I don't even remember how to calculate the diagonal of diagonal of rectangle. So it's square of width plus L2 square. Alright, so this should be pretty easy then, I think. You basically just have to return max squared of, so you want to return the root, the square root of a at the power of 2 plus b at the power of 2. This should be it. Easier than I thought. Alright, let's see. Let's attempt. Expected value none to approximately equal the value of 0. What's going on here? All of these are giving me an issue. Is this not working in here? A or A, B or B. Test. Expected actual value none to approximately equal the value of 0. What's going on here? Why is this not working? Distance between points. Point A and point B. No, wait. Are they doing new point 3 and 3? Oh, wait. Because basically these are points which have coordinates. Okay, so it's a bit more complicated. Okay, so you have some coordinates, right? So basically this is like a point which is at these coordinates, and then you have another point at some other coordinates. Okay, but how do you access those points? I don't even understand what a point is. New point. Is this even a, what is the point? This is supposed to be easy? Yes, I guess I must suck. 3 and 0. What is this? 3, 3, 3, 3 and 0. But how do you access this? Let me see if I console log a x. Is this gonna return anything, or how do I know where those points are? Oh, I can access them like this. Okay, so this gives me a starting thing. So basically I know where they are. But this is still a bit more difficult because I have 2 points here and here. So I have an x, so I have the x and y for this, and the x and y for this. Okay, so I basically have to find the difference between this and the difference between this, and this is how I'm gonna find the width and the length. Okay, it's not that hard. So first, what I want to do is you want to find the difference between the x of one and the x on the other, the whichever is the max. So you want to say const width equals and you're going to say mat abs because you want to find the absolute of the difference, ax minus bx, and then a const height equal mat abs of ay minus bi, and then you return exactly what I said before. You want to return mat skirt of width or width plus height or height. This should work now. All right, let's do this. All right. Woo! I solved an easy challenge. All right, let's do one more and we're probably gonna end the live after this one. I have to get something to eat. Very hungry as I only ate once today and it's the evening. All right, let's do one more. Another easy one. Okay. So write a function called repeat string which repeats the given string exactly in time. So repeat string 6i it will do this and blah. So basically we have to repeat, make a function that given a string and a repetition it will return a string with that string that many times. Now obviously this is like super easy to do if you use what JavaScript give you, because you can just say return s repeat uh, repeat n times, and JavaScript already has this function and it will work, right? Or you can do it harder by by doing it manually. You just assume that there's not this function in, and you could do it harder, like saying okay, you have an let string uh, string which is empty equals empty string, and then you can say while n, so while n is still positive, while n is still positive, you want to say string plus equals s and then n minus minus, right? And then you return the string, right? And that will work as well. Obviously now we have repeat, so you don't have to do that. Okay, this was pretty fast, so let's go do another one and then we're gonna end this live for now. Well, for we're gonna end this live and we're gonna do another one at some point. Okay, will you make it? Alright, this is like a story again. You were camping with your friends far away from home, but when it's time to go back, you realize that your fuel is running out and the nearest pump is 50 miles away. You know that on average your car runs on about 25 miles per gallon. There are 2 gallon left. Considering these factors, write a function that tells you if it's possible to get to the pump or not. Function should return true, uh, 1 in prologue if it's possible, and false, 0 in prologue. I don't have no idea. Oh, 0 in prologue is probably some kind of programming language. If not, the input values are always positive, right? So here they give you distance to pump, so how long, how much to get there, uh, how much miles you can do per gallon, and how many gallons left, right? So we can say uh, if fuel left, so how many gallons, or uh, miles per gallon is higher or equal to distance to pump, return 1, which means you can make it, otherwise return 0, right? As you can see, this works. We can make it a bit cleaner by saying return fuel left is we can say 1, otherwise 0. We're using a ternary operator here. We're saying if the fuel left or miles per gallon is higher than the distance to pump, which means higher or equal to the distance to pump, which means we can go with the car more, or that distance, then we return 0, which means we can make it, otherwise we return 1, which means we can make it, otherwise we return 0. So let's attempt this, and that's it. Alright, I'm gonna end this live here, and we're probably gonna do more because this is fun. Hopefully more people are gonna join and we can jump next time. I hope you enjoyed this if you watched it, and hope to see you next time. Have a good evening or day wherever you are. Bye bye.